Well, as I mentioned, it turns out that Australia Post is going to close another one of their facilities here in Brisbane. The Stones Corner retail precinct has had a few issues at different times. Business insiders say it's not now as bad as it once was, but today it looks like Stones Corner is copping another blow with the announcement that their local Australia Post outlet is planning to shut its doors in a few months. In other words, the post office is going, and locals aren't happy. I'm joined by two people, Councillor Fiona Cunningham. Fiona is the Brisbane City Councillor for the Coorparoo Ward. Thanks for coming in, Fiona Cunningham.
Thanks, Steve.
And I'll turn on your microphone now. My problem, sorry about that.
Thanks, Steve.
And we've also got with us Michael Weibler. Michael owns the bookshop Books at Stones. Mike, thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
So, Fiona, first of all, what can you tell me as the councillor for the area? What have locals been told?
Well, Steve, let me just cast your mind back. About a decade ago, people were really questioning the role of Australia Post. But Australia Post then reinvented themselves. They're not just about postage anymore. The local post office is also a place to do banking, pay your bills, arrange a passport. And the Stones Corner Post Office links my local traders with the e-commerce world. So, for example, I've got a dressmaker at Stones Corner that has clients from all over Australia, and she uses the local post office to get her dresses to her clients. When I heard a rumour that this post office was going to close, I kickstarted a community campaign with my traders to back them and keep our post office open.
Australia Post says it's due to circumstances beyond their control, and I'm quoting them. Do you accept that?
Look, Australia Post expects us to cop an increase in prices on one hand, and then they say it's outside their control with the other hand, and removing services from our communities. This is an important local service for my traders, and I'm backing them and bringing my community together to fight it.
Michael Weibler, you own a bookshop, Books at Stones. If and when they close the post office at Stones Corner, what will that mean for you?
Well, specifically for us, Steve, we'll have to move our PO box somewhere or have mail delivered straight to us. But all of the e-parcel, we use the Australia Post e-parcel system. So I will have to then, instead of walking to the post office, I'll have to walk it to the next closest post office, which is 1.6 kilometres away, assuming it stays where it is. It might even move further away, who knows. Mm-hmm. And I, like other traders, because I'm also president of the local development association.
Okay.
And other traders will have to do the same thing with their bulk mail outs. Instead of walking to the post office, they're going to have to employ people now or staff are going to have to drive to other post offices to do that sort of business.
Aussie Post say they've got 5 other post offices nearby. I guess they're implying that, you could use one of those.
Well, they certainly are. They're more than implying it. They're actually saying we will.
Right.
And the bottom line is if we don't win to keep them, that's what we'll have to do. And like all good Australians, we'll get on and do it. But the bottom line is it makes it more difficult for business. It will be an extra cost for my business. And I dare say it'll be an extra cost for the other businesses that use it. The other concern isn't just the business community. The Australia Post is a full-service post office. You pay bills.
That's right.
You do
it's
banking.
It's a hub, basically.
It's a hub. You do banking. People do passports. And a lot of the non-trading community, a lot of the community themselves, use the post office for a wide range of services. And the alternative that Australia Post might put in place, if they can find a trader that will do a community post office option, won't have any of those services anyway. It'll only be some domestic mail services.
Is that acceptable to you?
No, it's not acceptable because all those services won't exist. The banking, financial services, passports, that sort of stuff. And in addition, my e-parcel, because I've actually had a discussion with Australia Post about this, an area manager, and under the community post office, they can't take my e-parcels. They'd have to do something special just for me because the community post office doesn't get a computer.
So when they say it's due to circumstances beyond our control, quote unquote, do you believe them?
Oh, I believe that the building's being knocked down. Yeah, sure, I get that. But I don't believe they've done anything to try and find a suitable location for a post office. It's actually a licensed post office where they are the licensee because they bought it back some years ago from a licensee or a franchisor. Mm-hmm. So they control it even though it's an LPO. And I'm not aware that they've done anything to try and sell it, find another location for it. All I've looked at is this community.
And you're the president of the local traders group there?
As well, yes.
Okay, so Michael Weibler is the owner of the bookshop Books at Stones. We're talking about the loss or the news of the loss of the Australia Post post office at Stones Corner. Councillor Fiona Cunningham is Brisbane City Councillor for the Coorparoo ward. Give me your thoughts on the Australia Post reportedly saying, Fiona, that they're looking at a community postal agency. What are your thoughts on that as an option?
Well, we've just heard from Michael that that's not necessarily going to meet the needs of the local traders, and I'm bringing people together, residents and traders, to fight for a service that they need and that they've said that they wanted. Quite frankly, Steve, I'm a bit frustrated, and you can probably tell in my voice. It's because as the local councillor, I'm trying to do things to support my traders. Recently, we've announced new tree lighting at Stones Corner, which will really lift the area. We've got an upgrade of the Stones Corner Library, which is currently underway. That's going to bring more people into Stones Corner. We have an upgrade of Hanlon Park. There's a reconfiguration of parking underway at Stones Corner because that's been a concern for people. So we've increased the amount of parking and turnover. At a time
There's stuff happening in the area.
At a time when council is backing the community, I'm very disappointed to learn this from Australia Post.
There are post offices less than 3 kilometres away. Are they good enough? So Michael can go for a bit of a walk, whatever it is, to the other post office. Is that?
Well, I mean, you'd have to ask Michael and the other traders.
Well, he's already said it's no good.
I don't think that they can walk 3 kilometres to collect to collect a parcel.
When did the public find out about this? Have they actually put out a proper formal statement announcing, Michael?
No, Steve, they have, not to my knowledge. I know that they've, in response to letters both from Fiona Cunningham and our local federal MP, Terry Butler, they have responded saying it's closing.
Yep.
There's been nothing official from the post office. Once the staff at the post office were told, they were verbally informing customers as and when customers or PO box holders when they saw them. But there has been no formal announcement. The gentleman I spoke to indicated that they were trying to come up with an alternative before they made that announcement. But of course, the longer it goes, the more difficult it's going to be for people to make other arrangements.
Councillor Fiona Cunningham, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but Lynn from Logan Village wants to know, does your postcode change when a post office closes down? Do you know?
No, I'm not
It probably wouldn't in my mind, but I don't actually know. But it wouldn't close. No, because the post office, the postcode would stay. Yeah.
Well, it's just on that, Steve. Greenslopes and Stones Corner share the same postal code, 4120.
Okay.
So whereas Coorparoo is a different one.
Okay.
And people just have to change their address.
All right. Now, is there a new development popping up in the area in Stones Corner on the street? Is that right? Do you know?
Well, there's
probably a lot of development that's happening in Stones Corner, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things. The other thing to address, Steve, is that Stones Corner is being set up as a hub. We're on a transport hub. It's being zoned for I don't know, it's 12 to 14 stories in some parts for residential development, and I'm aware of
next to Shady Palms, apparently. So
well, that's already been developed at the moment for some more retail and business, and there are further developments in both retail and residential that have been approved, which we're expecting will start in the next 2 years.
It's certainly a growing community.
Okay, so you've written to Australia Post.
And I've written to the Federal Communications Minister.
Okay.
And I've also had Senator Amanda Stoker walk with me to visit local traders in the street and so that she can understand those concerns and take them straight up to the Minister.
All right. Terry Butler, the Labor federal member, has written to Australia Post. What are the traders doing, Michael?
Well, now that I've spoken to both, obviously all 3 levels of government, and our aim now is we'll write to Australia Post. I'm advising people to complain to Australia Post so that they get a record of everybody who's upset by the decision or affected by the decision, and that they should also at least advise Terry Butler's office, just so she's aware of how many people are affected by it. Mm-hmm. And I'll be putting a submission into Australia Post.
Margaret of Greenslopes has sent me a text saying, my organisation is a postbox holder at Stones Corner and has received no notification. Any idea how many post office boxes are at the Stones Corner post office?
There's about 800.
So is that a fair size? That sounds like a lot to me.
It's a reasonable number, and I understand there's about 600 that are currently used.
Okay.
And whether there's enough spare at the other post offices, I don't know the arrangements for that. if people have to change.
All right.
I've also heard reports from other businesses that they've recently paid for their post office box and they weren't told that the post office was closing.
Of course. So if you bought a new one, you're now being done it. Okay. Have they given you a date, Fiona Cunningham, or have you got any sort of date from
End
Australia
of
Post?
November.
End of November. Oh, so that's fairly close. That's pre-Christmas, really.
Yep.
Pre-Christmas.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, some of that's to do with the building being knocked down.
Okay.
But my concern.
Okay, fair point.
Yeah, but my concern is that I don't know this for a fact, but it's my assumption that all of the, based on what I've been told, is that the people, the current tenants, were advised back February, March, April that it was going to be something was going to happen.
Thanks both for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Councillor Fiona Cunningham, Brisbane City Councillor for the Coorparoo Ward, and Michael Weibler, who's the owner of the bookshop Books at Stones, also president of the local business group in the area.